recording. Welcome back. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Career Lab Q2 2023. I can't believe that it's already the end of Q2 2023. Time flies. We're here with a really great session, but I want to take a quick second just to touch base with where everyone should be. We're almost at the end of week 1 for Career Lab. And so you guys have probably gotten a lot done. Let me share my screen. And we got the repo here. I don't know if you can see my toolbar, but I'm going to move it because it's blocking everything. Okay, so hopefully you've watched all the LinkedIn stuff, got that all settled, and you've already sent your LinkedIn link to your mentor. If you haven't, make sure you do that. Try and get it done by tonight, because your mentors are ready and waiting to go over it and give you some feedback. And you want to make sure, if you have questions for them, if something's not clear, that you have a couple of days to be able to get with them and talk to them. Right now we're on Thursday, navigating finances. Tomorrow's session, unfortunately, had to be canceled, but I found last quarter's video and I put that. So it's now an async session. You won't be able to ask the questions directly live, but you'll still get a bunch of great information from Yosha. It was a fantastic session. It was just a couple months ago. I don't think things have changed too much. And then we start week 2, the meaty stuff about getting your interview. So make sure you do the async stuff first. On Monday, we have a really awesome session. Watch our mentors interview each other. It's going to be a tech interview this time, so you'll get to see both the interviewee and the interviewer side go through that process, and they'll give you a chance to see it without any risk or pressure for yourself. And then if you have questions and things, we're going to go and debrief the whole thing afterwards. And then you have some partnered stuff. You're going to sync up with another Collab, and then one or both, depending on what you need and want and have time for, you're going to meet with a mentor to go through your own mock interviews. And then next Sunday, we wrap it up. So that's where we're at. If you have any questions, if you need anything, feel free anytime to shoot me a DM, and I can help, or I will help in any way I can, or I'll find the person that can help. Okay, now without further ado, I'm going to give Luke the screen. He is a certified financial planner who's going to share so much valuable information for you in your new career that just started, is about to start, and going forward. So take it away, Luke. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks everyone for being here, and whoever's watching the recorded version. I'm excited to go over navigating finances during a career change. I've worked with a lot of people that have made the career change. I've got a few friends that have made the career change, even specific to tech and software engineering and data analysts and all those fun different career paths that are out there for you. And the reason why this is actually my favorite thing to talk about is just all the cool new possibilities, new opportunities you're creating for yourself. And I know it's not easy. I know that you've gone through a ton of hard work. Collab Lab just being a small snippet, a couple weeks of that whole kind of process and journey that you've been taking, and I'm glad to be a part of it and kind of give you a little bit of information I think about on the finances. Go quickly into my background. So originally from Illinois, both me and my wife are. We've lived in Colorado forever now. It feels like 12 years, I think. All of our children have been born out here. This is finally a new picture. I kept showing like a year and a half old picture, and so I finally got that updated. That's just from the spring. So lots of little kids running around here. You might hear them in the background. I started my financial planning company to help young tech professionals figure out their financial stuff back in 2017. So almost 6 years into it at this point. And then a couple of years later, after I started that, everyone was asking me to do their taxes for them. I was like, oh, I'm not doing taxes right now. I kept trying to refer them to people. Those people weren't the greatest. So I was like, all right, I'll just do your taxes. And so I spun up tax planning, and tax is an important piece of the puzzle. So we're not going to dive into taxes at all, I don't think, today, unless the questions come up for it. But I think that's super important to dig into, understand what's going on there as you guys move forward in your career. I create all kinds of content less frequently now as I actually have clients. When I first started, I didn't have much going on. I was totally my fingers figuring out what I could do, and I created a ton of content, and I'm still kicking out things every now and then through my podcast video and some cheat sheets. So if you guys ever need anything, just shoot me over a question. I can shoot you over some resources I may already have created. And if I haven't created anything yet, I'll find some good stuff to share with you from somebody else. So what we're going to cover today specifically, so we're going to talk about, well, how can you be financially successful? So we'll go through the things that I've seen that are important. I'll give you a couple of example scenarios just to kind of gauge like, hey, what are the different changing scenarios and new possibilities with your income going up and different things that come up in tech. I'll tackle the this or that section, which is basically the frequently asked questions I usually get from clients and non-clients alike about different financial situations that are very common, what to beware of in tech as well, because just like anything, there's always pros, but then there's always some cons, things that you want to make sure you don't forget or are not aware of and actually fall into some traps. And then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end as well. I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think another person or two has jumped on since then. Feel free to ask questions throughout. I'll definitely take the time to pause and answer questions as they come up. And I'll also be asking things of you as we're going through, just to make it a little bit more interactive, make sure you guys are awake. And before we dive into the meat of it, I'm required as a financial planner to share these disclosures. Basically what this says is, hey, this is for informational purposes only. I don't consider it direct recommendations to your specific situation because I don't know your specific situation. I do encourage you to anything that kind of perks up your ears or seems like it would be relevant. If you don't have the clear answer all the way through, don't hesitate to jot down notes and then follow up on Google or follow up with a message to me. I'm in the Slack group and I can point you to some resources to make sure that you kind of further flesh out what you're thinking and how you're going to approach some of these financial topics that we'll cover today. So does money impact happiness? So that's what your finances is all about, right? What do we do with the money stuff? How do we best utilize this to live your best life? And money does impact your finances, and you can see earlier on it's a lot steeper. So if you go from making nothing to making 10,000, like that's a big difference. It probably changes things pretty dramatically. 10,000 to 40,000, still pretty significant, pretty steep improvement on happiness level with that income going up just slightly. But one thing that you'll start to see is as you get towards that bend area, the same amount of income increase does not nearly create the same amount of happiness that it would otherwise at those lower income levels. And so that's what I found with a lot of my tech clients is, hey, they'll find ways to spend it sometimes, but it's not necessarily improving or changing their happiness in that anyway. So I want you to be cognizant of that as you're getting raises, that first job, raises, promotions, stock options that might start dropping sizable amounts of money. You can definitely spend it however you want. Just be thoughtful as far as how much value is it actually adding. And if it's not adding a ton of value, maybe it's not the best kind of decision because there could be other opportunities down the road. Or what we're seeing right now with a lot of folks in tech is that's primarily where the layoffs are happening. You're not seeing layoffs at other types of companies. It's really tech, where tech has grown a ton over the last few years, especially during the COVID period. And now they're starting to tighten things and starting to reduce some of the headcounts at a lot of those larger tech companies. So when you think about being financially successful, I've had people just think, you know what, if I make 100,000, I'll be successful. And it doesn't need to be that. I have a few clients that still make lower than six figures. They're actually on target to retire early. And it depends more on what you're spending more than the income that you're pulling in most situations. So if you don't have good habits, if you don't manage your money well at 70,000 and your income jumps to 90,000, if you didn't have good habits, that increase might actually make things worse for you. You might think that, hey, I got $20,000 additional spend, let's go spend it. Well, there's taxes, there's probably more 401k contributions, things like that occur. You don't really have that full $20,000 pay increase. And so not having a good relationship with your finances, having a basic understanding of, well, what does this actually mean at the end of the day? And not having those good habits could actually put you in a worse position as your income goes up. When it comes to financial success, it's going to be just like anything you've done. So right now you're in this career transition, there's been different milestones all along the way, and you didn't go just from point A to point B instantly. There's all these different things that you've had to do, invest in yourself, take the time, take the energy to kind of pour into things, and your finances are going to be the same way. So just again, making six figures doesn't instantly make you a winner of any type of game. There's still lots of games to play. It's just a point, and how you navigate that, how you decide to use that and best utilize it to build your best life. That's going to be more important than any one thing. You may have heard lottery winners, people have won millions and millions of dollars, and all of a sudden they're filing bankruptcy. Well, you would have thought that they could never spend that money, but just having these one instances, if it's not a process, if they weren't disciplined to achieve that, it's more likely that they will just kind of waste it if they don't understand what's going on there. And at the end of the day, I think having a game plan is super huge, just as far as giving you confidence, giving you a little bit of a roadmap as far as what's going on. And so here's a question I'm going to send out to you guys: is why do you think that you need a plan? What do you think a plan does as far as providing value to you, whether it's a financial plan or any other type of plan that you implement? Yes, and answer in the chat, or you can even unmute yourself if you wanted to. And Shelly probably already knows some of the answers. Got something in the chat here.
Drake unmuted. You got one for us?
Yeah, I mean, like you have a plan, you're more likely not to overspend, and you can actually, put it into savings and retirement, and like, maybe you want to buy a house. Otherwise, if you don't have a plan, what are you going to do? You might end up spending more than you're expecting,
Yeah.
And like if you get a new promotion, you end up spending it, then what's the point of the promotion?
Yeah. Yep. And definitely some of those things you were mentioning, Drake, were kind of goal oriented, where that definitely helps. If we have goals, then we can start to implement, well, how do we get, again, from point A to point B without figuring out that, hey, this isn't just going to happen with that first paycheck. You're going to get multiple paychecks over multiple years, and we want to make sure that we achieve these things. And yeah, otherwise, without a clue of what's important to you or why you're moving in those directions, you will spend it. And Beth answered here, and preparing for emergencies. So definitely a huge one. Again, with layoffs, definitely that could be considered emergencies. There's financial stuff that comes up all the time. I just got an email, I think it was yesterday or maybe it's 2 days ago, where, oh, we're getting a lot of rain here in Colorado, and there was flooding in a basement. They need to kind of install and kind of repair some stuff, and that's $10,000. So we have some money for emergency savings. They haven't quite built it up to that point, but yeah, the emergencies pop up all different forms and sizes, and if you have a game plan to build your emergency savings, it's there for you to reduce stress and just allow you to better, more easily navigate different situations that come up that are less fun to navigate through. And I'm not gonna even try to say his name. The last time I said it, I think a lot of people started laughing, so I'm not gonna say his name. But a goal without a plan is just a wish. And Antoine, I can say the first name. He's the one that said that. And how many of you know someone, or maybe this was you, with different aspects of your life? Obviously, it's not with breaking into tech, because you guys are taking these steps through Collab Lab, through a bunch of other ways to make this career transition. But how many people do you know have said, hey, I wish I could do this, or I wish I could do that, but they don't actually take any action, no movement, or if they do, if they don't have a plan, they're just kind of moving in the wrong direction, and it's going to take longer, most likely not going to be successful without kind of having a more clear plan on that. Yeah. Shelly says that was her for so long. Yep. And it's easy. It's hard if we don't have the goals, especially if prior to making some of these career transitions, there just might not be a lot of money available for some of the things like travel, purchasing a house, paying off student loans. there's a lot of things where if you don't have money, it's just very tricky, and why even think about a vacation? It's just going to make you disappointed if you reasonably can't even make it work with the financial constraints that you might have at that situation. But again, all the more power where if that's important, well, how do we find a way to get more money? Maybe it's making a career change. Oh, this tech thing seems cool. What options, what career paths are in here? And so just going through those different thought processes, whether it's for the financial stuff or not, like a lot of people are going into tech, and then this might be the case for some of you because of the financial part. So it's to start being a part of the plan. Maybe getting into tech wasn't the initial goal, but some of those other goals you have in life required you to find something that's going to make those things happen. So definitely important to just kind of see some of these things we have these plans going on, and we don't connect the dots as far as like, oh, we just went through this whole process and we just created a plan. You think that maybe you're just doing things and kind of making these independent choices, but a lot of times these things happen subconsciously, and we're actually making a plan, we just don't realize it yet. So a plan, if you do create one and actually put it in place, that's going to help you get more clarity for sure as far as where you are, where you're going, and then are you on track with what you're doing now? If not, what are these maneuvers? What are these actions, different milestones that we need to take to kind of get you there? And rarely is it ever a straight line. And so if we were to draw something here, you'd be zigzagging all around, and that's life. We can't, it's called financial planning, because once you create the financial plan, something in your life is going to change. Like I said, emergency for my one client, sometimes having more kids than you expected, or me deciding to start a business that was not anywhere really on my radar as far as expectations. But yeah, things came out where it's like, oh, yep, good thing I had these emergency savings. Like Beth was saying, like it wasn't for starting my business, but I definitely used it to get things rocking and rolling. And so it's nice to have. So if we were to kind of just quickly break out some steps to make a quick plan, step number one, with anything that you're trying to achieve, believe you're capable of financial success. This is something that I always want to just make sure I beat it into my kids, not really beat it into, but just make sure they understand that, hey, you guys can do whatever you want to do. My parents were like that for me. My wife's not so much like that for her. But I think that's pretty critical to just being successful. Without that confidence or belief that you can work towards something and achieve it, or that you deserve something, you're more likely to never take the steps to try to move in that direction. You're more likely to self-sabotage yourself for other various reasons. And so having the belief that you're capable of and deserving of the hard work that it takes to be financially successful, I definitely believe that's the case for anyone that wants to put in the work, time, and energy to figure this stuff out. Then identifying meaningful goals. So again, I think this is a huge part where that will get you to move and take action. If you're thinking that something would be cool to do, but it's not getting you to take action, well, that cool thing probably isn't that big of a goal. It's probably not that important to you. So let's change that. Let's scrap that. What's something that is actually exciting that would get you to take action and make changes? Those are the goals that you want to target, because they will actually get you to get your butt in gear and start making different maneuvers and actions for yourself. Most of you probably have some type of resource already, and it might be old retirement accounts, it might be some savings, it might even just be like, hey, I got a vehicle so I can drive myself to work if I can't find a remote position. Like there's all these different resources. Find out what you have, find out how you can leverage those to put yourself in the best position. And just because you're working with something today, maybe you have a very, very old, very basic laptop, and you know that eventually you'll need to upgrade that to once you kind of break into tech. Well, yeah, let's see how we can maximize what we got. And when we get there, we can upgrade those things down the line. One thing I see a lot of people doing is upgrading in ways that they actually are not meaningful. So if I had to start a landscaping company, I probably don't need the biggest, most gigantic, most expensive truck, because I could get a older truck that still works the same, still operates the same, still dependable, and get all my jobs done, get paid the same amount of money, whether it's a $10,000 used truck or a $70,000 crazy mega duty thing. And what I see a lot of people do is they say, nope, I need this because it'll help me do better, it'll make me work better or something like that. And there might be small changes, but it might not be worth that dollar difference. And if you're not financially in a place to be able to do those things, just be maximize your resources the best you can, and then know that we can upgrade those resources. And all throughout your career, you're your biggest resource. You want to invest in yourself, but yet definitely be thoughtful. You don't want to just go and get nothing but certifications and degrees, but never actually use them, never actually gain real life experience, and be thoughtful about that. And so once you see your resources too, and kind of the direction you're going, how much income you're generating, you can find out, well, are you on track already? And that's super helpful to know, because if you might be way ahead of the game, maybe you can spend more money than you thought you could. Maybe you're behind, which a lot of people tend to be when they don't have the goals, they don't have their financial plan in place. But just knowing that means that, hey, well, now that's going to change how I do things. Maybe I won't necessarily cut Starbucks out every day, but maybe I'll just make Starbucks a special treat. So still get the power and benefit of, it feels cool to go and have someone else make you coffee and hand it to you, but not do it every single day, because the benefit and the value gets a little bit watered down when you do the same thing every day. It's not as special. So knowing whether you're not or on track is super powerful towards those goals, and will help you take those actions. And then, regardless of what it is, if it seems like you're way off track, or if you're thinking like too big picture, like, let's break these things down. Yes, you might need $2 million by the time you retire, but if that's 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you don't need that today. You don't need that this next year. And surprisingly enough, if you just do very small increments, whatever you can start at, and start to build that up over time, 10 years from now, you're going to be very close to getting closer towards those milestones. And so you don't want to be overwhelmed by the bigger picture of the things, the dollar amounts that you need to move towards or that you have to save. Just start with small amounts, start with $100 a month, and start to build that and snowball some of that progress. Any questions at this point as we're kind of talking through things? See anyone unmuted, so we'll keep going. But yeah, feel free to chime in if something pops up. So between the left and right side, this is kind of two different people. So it will be on your left side, you'll see the longer list of things. That person's going to be more financially successful than the one on the right, where there's only 3 items and they're struggling. And what do you kind of notice as being the big changes and differences between those two side-by-side situations?
Is anyone going to jump on before me?
Kelly knows all the answers, so she can
It's
jump in.
true. It's true. But I also have put them all into play, so I feel
Yep.
qualified to talk about it. No, obviously the savings, the person on the left has savings, the person on the right does not. But I feel like the one that's deeper, more significant, is that the person on the right doesn't differentiate between needs and wants, that they're at the same level, and that's a danger zone, I guess.
Yeah, because it's very confusing, right? When everything you spend, if you're making $200,000 and you're spending all of it, there's probably lots of wants in there. And when you don't distinguish between, well, this is important, like, heck, I got laid off. You're used to depending on 200,000, actually spending all the way up to that amount, basically minus taxes and some of those things. What happens when you're laid off is, well, that's a lot of money. If you don't have an emergency savings, you're going into debt very quickly. If you do have emergency savings, you're just burning through that savings very quickly. And so understanding very quickly what's a want and what's a need, you're able to make different choices. And even if you're not an emergency type situation, I've just had clients when we go through the process and we kind of realize, hey, you're not on track, they start digging into, well, this thing is nice to have, don't need it, let's toss that. And sometimes I'll have clients that go from saving barely anything to saving like $2,000, $3,000, just after a conversation because they have the clarity that they're not on track and they're freaked out. And then they already had subconsciously in their mind a lot of their wants that probably are not necessary, and they're able to start shifting that towards savings. So being able to differentiate those things, whether it's a crisis situation or it's just moving some of the wants out of there and putting goals ahead of that too, is another reason why that could be important to be aware of those differences. Yep, and John mentioned, yep, no savings. That's a huge one too. So I think putting savings first, even above the needs and wants, is important, because a lot of what people do, even when they make that successful career change, so it's like, hey, income jumped up a bunch. Let's see how much I have at the end of the month, and I'll save that. That'll be my new savings amount. And then you get through, it's like, I got this new job. I can say yes to this. I can treat my parents. I can treat my brother and sister. You just start being a little bit loose with your spending, and you get to the end of the month. I'm like, all right, sweet. I got this new job. I got all this pay. We definitely lived it up this month. How much did I save? And it's like, all right, I didn't save anything. That's all right. Next month, I'll save whatever's left next month. I'm sure I'm not going to do the same thing again, but you already start shifting some of those behaviors and patterns. And if you keep putting savings at the end of the line, you'll realize that you're always finding ways for those wants to sneak in there and steal from the savings, and you never get there. So you want the savings to be automatic too. So that's one thing that if I wanted to add something in here, I don't think I've shared in the past, is if we automate this guy right at the beginning, as soon as you get paid, it's gonna more likely to be stuck there, and it'll be there for those rainy days. It'll be there for different opportunities, and you'll be way better off after a couple months, and then especially after a couple of years. If you see some of the compounding effects of building wealth, building savings, you're just gonna be a lot more confident, less financially stressed for sure. So I mentioned this at the very beginning, like this is why I love career changers, especially when it is moving to tech. A lot of times there is just huge income differences. Sometimes it's benefits too. Like some of these companies, if they're not just like super startup mode where they don't have any benefits, a lot of these tech companies are competing with each other still, and have all types of benefits that, hey, now you're not paying an arm and a leg for health insurance, or you actually got good health insurance, so you're not paying an arm and a leg if something comes up. So definitely new possibilities is the most exciting thing that I'm excited for you, for anyone making these big investments in yourself, all these sacrifices that I'm sure that you've had to go through. And it means that, hey, if you needed to catch up, you probably can. Now with a career change, once you kind of get those first opportunities, and maybe it's not right out the gate, maybe it takes a year or two of starting to build that experience before the income really starts catching up, but it doesn't take long most of the time. So be ready for it, even if that first one is not paying you quite what you think you would like to be receiving. Just keep your head down, keep looking for opportunities, keep networking, and yeah, before long there will be plenty of resources for you to catch up. There might be new goals that in the past, like vacation, yeah, right. Hawaii, yeah, right. But once your income jumps significantly, if as long as you're not spending it on a bunch of frivolous things, maybe lower value things, there should usually be ways for you to catch up and start applying it towards some of these dreams and goals that before just didn't think were possible. Like that, oh, other people do that, not me, not us. So I'm super excited for those things to come up for you. Finally, just having peace of mind, being able to go to bed at night and not being freaked out if utilities are turned off, if your car breaks down, that you're gonna have to walk or push it, or any of these types of things. So surprisingly, a lot of my clients, even the clients that have been in tech all their career, so I do have a couple of older clients though, like 50s and 60s, where they're like, yeah, I went to college, I did the college thing, I've been in tech for 30 years, but those first 5-10 years in the early 20s weren't necessarily paying like how tech is paying now. And so people were having to ride their bike because their car broke down, having to live in their cars and things like that. And now they're millionaires. It's like, for real, like that's your backstory, like that's true stories. And I've had most of my clients that are older like that have a lot of these same stories. So you might have had these struggles, something comparable. And the nice thing is, like, that's your past, right? We're creating stuff, we're moving towards the future, and there's tons of cool stuff ahead. And just having that peace of mind is a real game changer. Your quality of life just drastically looks different, right? When you're not being fearful all the time, and you feel like you can take a breath and think about happy things for sure. You can take more risks too. So I started a business because we just happened to save and have emergency savings and different things. Lots of people are deciding to do that, so they're being laid off right now, and they're like, well, I could go find someone else that might lay me off again, or I've always been interested in starting my own company or becoming an independent contractor and seeing what that's like. You can take risks like that. You can take time off. I've clients that plan to take full year-long sabbaticals, travel all around the world. You can retire early. So all these things, and this is just a handful of things, right? There's so many other things if we wanted to get very specific that the possibilities are endless. Shelly said that the auto transfer's best friend. Yeah, it's so nice. Just that it's doing it for you. And again, once might not be that first job, but those other kind of subsequent years. So year 2, year 3, as the income starts to grow, as some of maybe debts start to get paid off. So if there are credit card things, nasty debts that, like, yeah, we need to catch up, we need to get these monkeys off our back. Once those things are gone, though, it's just nice to just see, like, everything is just moving in lockstep automatically. You don't have to think about it. You're saving before you're even thinking about spending money on some of the things that that are fun or that you want to do. And the nice thing is, when you save first and you've kind of already built out your plan, you know that you can spend that money fine. You don't have to feel guilty when you go to Starbucks or when you buy expensive workout equipment. That's one of my splurges I did after finally feeling like, I think my business is successful enough. Haven't spent a single penny on myself for multiple years. I've spent a ton of money on a workout thing. So there's different things that are important to you that once you know that you're on track because you're saving, doing everything automatic, you can spend that other stuff without worrying and having that peace of mind. So here's a couple examples. I'm just going to walk you through of a situation of a career changer where their salary increased as they broke into tech and got that first tech job. It's a lot of information, so you might have to go back and look at the video or just ask some clarifying questions as we go through this. But in this example number 1, we're talking about someone that made this career transition. They have old debt. They're trying to catch up. They're trying to make up for some of the previous financial situations that they were in. So they now have a $75,000 salary after taxes. So after the tax adjustment, it's still to them an increase of $15,000, which comes to $1,250 a month. So that's some meaningful money that's just extra, wasn't there before they made this transition. They also have old credit card debt, which is annoying. It has a 22% interest. I say that's annoying, but there's some credit cards right now that are like 33, 34%. So they don't even have the worst credit card interest rate out there right now. They are required to make a $100 minimum payment. And if you do the math on that, you'd be like, oh, they're never paying this credit card off if they only do the minimum. So it's nice they got that pay increase and made that career transition. They also have an auto loan, $25,000 is the balance. They have to make the minimum payment of $350 every month. And the interest rate, not so bad, it's 4%. They also got this cool thing they've never heard of before called a 401k, and their employer is actually going to give them a 3% match. So what that means is if they put in 3% of their paycheck, their employer is also going to put 3%. So really it's 6% that goes in there. Right now, they've just been living paycheck to paycheck. They don't have an emergency fund. Definitely understandable, but now their situation's different. So what I would recommend in this situation is, hey, you got 1,250 extra a month that we're working with. Let's take advantage of the free money from your 401k. So that requires you put $188 in a month. Your employer is also going to put in $188 for you. So that's why we want to do that first. Free money, 100% return, basically, since they're matching your 100% on that free. The remaining 1,062 that they have of income that they never had before, I would say let's just aggressively pay off that credit card. I'd also say if credit cards are tricky for you to navigate, let's just stop using them for now. Just operate out of your checking account using a debit card and just keep an eye on things, make sure that things don't go haywire. So let's pay this down aggressively. Instead of the $100 minimum payment, we're now paying 1,062 additional on top of that. And within 9.5 months, that will get knocked out. It will no longer be a pain in the butt, no longer a monkey on their back, whatever you want to call that. They don't have to worry about it anymore. I actually would not have them apply that extra amount towards the auto loan. The interest rate on their auto loan is 4%. There's actually, believe it or not, right now savings accounts that no investment, no risk at all. You can put it in a savings account and earn over 4%. So instead of applying that towards their auto loan payment, which has a low interest rate, I'd say, hey, let's put that into a savings, start building your emergency savings. And the reason for that is the auto loan rate is fairly low. Emergency savings is going to be super important. And another thing I want you to think about is if they were to aggressively pay off that auto loan, remember they didn't have an emergency savings before. So if something came up, an emergency, like they got laid off, they can't go back and say, hey, I want that money that I paid towards the auto loan back. They're gonna be like, what are you talking about? You've already paid it. We can't give you the money back. Where if it's in your emergency savings, that's your money. You can pick and choose how you decide to use it. So if emergency came up, it's liquid, it's available to you. And right now you're earning over 4%. So it's actually better financially because you're earning more there than you'd be saving by applying it towards the auto loan. So yeah, after the credit card's paid off, plow that into emergency savings, get that high interest rate. And then as the emergency savings starts to build up and it's like, hey, I got a few months of emergency savings here, you can also think about increasing the 401k contribution as well moving forward. Any questions about that one? That one's the most difficult one to check because there's a lot going on. Don't see anything come through just yet. Here's a different example. So this person managed to navigate their previous income. They're like, you know what? We don't have any debt. Thank goodness. And now you got the same salary increase. So same situation on the salary side and the pay increase side, but they don't have that debt to tackle or to deal with. And so it's purely $1,250 a month to them. They still have the 401k with the 3% match. And there's a couple things they can do, right? They can spend all that extra if they want, or they can increase their 401k contribution. Basically, they'd get to about 20% contribution rate. And if they do that, they'll be able to retire in 7.5 years, or 7.5 years sooner, not in 7.5 years. So if their normal retirement age was 65, they'd be able to retire at 57.5. So yeah, shave 7.5 years off by just applying the extra money. They weren't in debt before, so that income they were making must have been fine for the most part. They might not be doing some of the extra things. And so the other extreme is, well, what if they spend it all? So if they spend it all, they're just going to retire at age 65. So they basically don't get to save that 7.5 years. So I just want to make sure I call that out. Any questions before I move on to the next section? And your all situations will be different because it depends on your age. It depends on some of the other goals, some of the other moving targets. Your debt might look different than this. Student loans are a pain in the butt, might not necessarily be forgiven here this summer. We'll find out more on that to be determined. The this or that section. So yeah, we'll tackle all the frequently asked questions that usually most popular top of mind things that come up when I'm talking with people. Should you get term life insurance or whole life insurance? And yeah, the answer to that most of the time I would say is term life insurance. And the reason for that, term life means that when you get life insurance, you only get it for a certain amount of time. So that's what the term stands for. And it could be 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, or usually the most common ones you'd see. You could pick and choose like, hey, if I get this new tech career and I'm making so much more, 20 years from now, your 401k is going to be a lot bigger. If you do have a house already, or if you plan to purchase a house, you'll have so much equity in the home in 20 years. You won't need life insurance usually after 20 to 25 years. So that's why I tend to lean towards term life insurance. term life insurance is also drastically lower cost. So if you were to buy a term life insurance policy, you could get $1 million of coverage on yourself for way less than if you try to get $1 million whole life insurance policy. The math is a little funky. It's not consistent, but I would say 6 to 10 times the cost typically is what you'd see. So somewhere in that range. And I actually have newer clients right now that I just went through the process, and they're paying like $80 a month for $100,000 of life insurance, and they're about my age. And I have $2 million in coverage, and I think I'm paying about the same amount as them, about $70 or so. So I'm actually paying maybe slightly less than they are, and I have 20 times the benefit that they have. And it's because they were sold a whole life insurance policy by an insurance salesperson and didn't get term life. So we're going to be working to take actions to make that change. A few situations where whole life does make sense is if you have a child or someone that's very young compared to you that has like a disability and will always need someone to take care of them. So if they aren't going to be able to take care of themselves when they're an adult, well, even if you had a 30-year term life insurance policy, what happens year 31 when you no longer have life insurance and all of a sudden something happens to you and you were the caregiver, or you were the one providing the financial well-being of this person who was a child when you first got the policy, but now they're in their 30s or 40s, but they need that help. So that's one reason whole life insurance sometimes comes into play for some unique business strategies when you have business partners where you kind of protect the business of one of the business partners but it really is that rare where when we line these things up side by side, where whole life insurance is actually more likely to be the best way to go. Usually term life insurance makes the most sense because you get the benefit you want for a lot lower cost, and then you're able to save or invest or spend it on things that are important to you, like travel and fun stuff there. Any of you ever ran into a life insurance situation, or are you somewhat familiar with this? Does this kind of spur any questions? Sometimes life insurance is probably one of the easier kind of paths. You don't necessarily need experience. You can go work for a life insurance person, or a life insurance company, and they'll train you to sell these things. So there's a good chance that you probably know a life insurance salesperson. If you talked with them, there's a good chance that they'd point you towards whole life insurance. Not necessarily because they're bad or evil, but that's just how they're trained. That makes the most money for the company. It makes the most money for them, and they'll try to talk up some of the benefits of it, where at the end of the day, usually it doesn't make sense though. It's still term life is usually the way to go, unfortunately. I'll leave you guys with that last song in case you guys run into someone in the future and they're like, hey, they're trying to say that this whole life is better. Yeah, I'd say definitely just go through the pros and cons and make sure they give you a comparison of a term life insurance policy right next to it. Because that's one thing they don't do. There's like, hey, look at this. There's nothing else basically in the world. I think it makes sense to see those things side by side. So what if you are in the situation where you have these debt repayments? Maybe you have credit cards, auto loans, student loans, whatever it is. Sometimes the mortgages. If we have this extra money, should we apply it towards the debt repayment or the 401k contributions? And this goes exactly back to the example. If your employer is offering a 401k match, definitely take advantage of the match. So whatever you need to get the full match from your employer, do that first. If there's still extra money that you have to go around, then I would look at what the interest rate is on the debt repayment. So if it's credit cards and it's 32 or 22%, yes, let's, after the 401k matching, let's start to knock out the credit card, just like in that example. The interest rate is going to vary depending on like what your comfort zone is, but I'd say typically anything above 6 or 7% is usually a clear indication where if you're paying more than that in interest, maybe we should focus on just paying down the debt, because it's guaranteeing that you're going to save over 7% of the cost of the interest. And there's no way to guarantee that you'll get greater than a 7% return on your 401ks. Some years you might, some years you might lose some. And so that's where that's a pretty common threshold that I would look at and kind of suggest. Your threshold might be lower or higher. You might be like, no, 10% is really the interest rates I care about. Or it might be, I don't want any debt. So even if you have a low 2% mortgage, I'm not one to recommend paying off a low 2% mortgage, especially now that they're like 6 and 7%, if you were to get a new one. But yeah, everyone has their different preferences and thoughts on those things. Any questions on that one? Nope. Perfect. Renting versus buying. So up until about this time last year, there was a huge benefit on the buying side. So the interest rates were drastically lower. They were still probably about 3%, or maybe it was a year and a half ago. So a year and a half ago, interest rates were 3% to buy a home here in the United States. Now they're closer to 7%. And it doesn't seem like that big of a difference. Like, hey, that's a 4% difference. Doesn't sound like a big number at all. But what it does to large mortgage balances is it makes the payment ridiculous and basically double than what it would have been about a year and a half ago. So that makes the affordability and the financial numbers make a lot less sense than they did about a year and a half ago. It still, in some situations, still might make sense to buy, especially if it's important to you to purchase a home in the area that you want to live in before home values continue to increase, if you're thinking that that's going to be the case. So buying still might make sense, but it's going to be a lot more painful. It's not as easy of a financial decision as it would have been about a year and a half ago. When you look at the rent side of things, rent is a lot more affordable when it comes to buying a new home these days. So that's one reason why people are like, yep, renting seems like a good option. There's still reasons why you might want to buy if it's just an important goal and you feel that you want to be there long term. Buying still may make sense because it is always possible interest rates could go down, and what you can do is what's called a refinance at a lower rate. So it's possible that you lock in a payment that you can afford now if you buy, if that's an important goal for you. If interest rates drop, you're able to lower your payment, lower your interest rate. So you have that option. The benefits of renting, I would say, is it gives you flexibility, right? You're usually only locked in for a year at a time. If you want to move completely somewhere different, you can do that. You're not tied down. A lot trickier if you're trying to sell a house and all of a sudden no one's buying houses. It might not move quickly as you want on your timeline. You might have to reduce the value of your home to sell it faster if that's important to you. So renting gives you a lot more flexibility, especially if you are not sold on the area that you're in, whether it's working wise or just long-term lifestyle. Like, hey, I can't see myself being here more than 2 or 3 years. If you can't see yourself being somewhere more than 2 to 3 years, I would definitely avoid buying, and I'd definitely focus on renting. Any questions about those ones? That's usually a hot topic sometimes, especially now. Perfect. So time or money. This is always going to be a personal preference. There's obviously the constraints, right? Time is a constraint for a lot of people. We all have the same amount of time. We don't all have the same amount of money and resources. So that's one big difference here. So you got to value or weigh these things out for your own personal values, your own personal capabilities with your financial situation. And one of the things, so if we go back to that happiness graph of what money can buy, where you actually do see those increases is a lot of times not because they're just spending money just to spend money, or because they're making money, they're spending money and that's making them happy. They actually still need to be more intentional with how they choose to spend their money. One way they can do that is by avoiding things that they don't like doing, saving time, avoiding those things. And that's a huge thing that increases your happiness. So I can speak from personal experience. Back when we had dogs, I did not enjoy at all cleaning up after them, our backyard or anything like that. It was the easiest money, best money I ever spent, just having someone come and do that for me. Saved me a lot of time. I did not enjoy doing it, and that increased my happiness level way more than I could have imagined. And so there'll be different things too. And we're always making these decisions. So when you decide to go to Starbucks or any coffee, your favorite coffee place, you can make that here. Maybe not necessarily saving you time, but it's saving you energy. It's convenient. You're out and about and like, holy smokes, how are we going to have time for dinner? We have to go home and make it. Like, oh, you can go through a drive-through or you can stop at a restaurant. So we're always making these decisions between time versus money. Even purchasing a dishwasher. Our dishwasher broke last spring, I think, and we had to wait about a week before we had the installation and all of that. And I can tell you from experience that the amount of time it took to wash dishes, I haven't done it in like 10 years. So by hand, other unless it's just like one or two things, but a full sink of dishes for a full family of 6, like that's a ton of time. I was just washing dishes, drying out my hands from all the soap and all that. And like, yeah, I never realized how much that it's a sizable amount of money, but easily worth it from the dishwasher. It's probably like 600, 700. I can't really remember what it was. Sizable amount of money. It seems like a lot, but when you think about how much time it saves you a day just by loading it up and starting it, and it's doing it, making sure they're all clean. We're always making these decisions. So it's going to come down to your resources, what's important to you. And there's some things that you like. I didn't realize it, but I cook all the time now and actually enjoy it. I probably didn't 10 or 15 years ago. But yeah, just be aware of what's important to you. If you do enjoy doing stuff, try to find ways to make time for you to do the things you enjoy and avoid doing the things you don't enjoy. And again, the resources of money is usually going to be the biggest constraint. So don't do everything at once. You'll never actually make progress, and you'll always feel behind, always stressed out. Might not be worth it. But if you kind of spread these things out and kind of gradually level up as your career levels up, then that'll be a nice spot to be. So there are a few things to be aware of. Lifestyle creep is the biggest one. So I see it a lot with my clients is, hey, $20,000 increase. That's awesome. Let's save some of that now. Let's automate some of that savings, because if we do not, you will find a way to spend every single penny of that. And it means that you're creating these new habits, and it means that your amount needed to retire is actually going up, because that's how things work. If you change your lifestyle now, your lifestyle is going to always be forever increased as you retire. So it means that instead of needing 5,000 a month, if you're now need 7,000 a month, well, that's an extra 2,000 a month for 20 or 30 years in retirement. That becomes a huge number. So lifestyle creep doesn't just impact your ability to save now, but it impacts the amount needed to actually cover your lifestyle way past when you stop working. Layoffs is the big one that's obvious right now. I've been sharing this even before we were running into layoffs, because tech is very cyclical. Lots of huge, fast, crazy growth, lots of big cutting headcounts and laying off people. And unfortunately, we're in that layoff period right now. There are some tech companies who are super excited, super awesome missions, but they're just getting off the ground. They're just bringing on team members. They're not spending money on benefits sometimes. So you might not have a 401k, or if they give you a 401k, they're not doing any matching. They might not be covering health insurance. They might not have all the bells and whistles that some of the more established long-term tech companies are offering. So definitely weigh those and use that to your benefit. It's probably a little bit harder to negotiate in right now, since there's so many layoffs and there's lots of people, a lot of competition for the same jobs. But in the future, just remember that you need to evaluate the benefit offerings as well as the compensation, the salary, the bonuses, the stock options, because those things all add up to financial stuff, even if it's not just the salary. So there's good news though. There's life-changing benefits, super high income, fast-growing incomes, employer stock. It could be worth nothing. It could be worth something very dramatic and very life-changing. So employer stock can sometimes be an amazing gift. And I think the best benefit of all is if you do start making this income and it's an increase, start doing the right things financially. You'll just be in better control over your future. Take the time you need to find the next opportunity. Just build the life more of what you feel like you wanted to make, other than the life that like you just, this is what we have to do, this is all we can do. And so that's one of the benefits as well. It's just kind of making this career transition, taking all the time to invest in your guys' self. So we covered a ton. Yep, we're right at the time. I'll let Shelly kind of close up, and you guys can shoot over messages and questions through the chat.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to share a personal anecdote just so you leave remembering this. I was in your position as a collabie just a year and a half ago. I attended Luke's session and I took all of his advice. As soon as I got the first role, it took a few extra months after that. Put 20% in my 401k. I was very grateful and lucky to not have any credit card debt. So everything else I threw back to building my savings back up because I had been, living off my savings while I was doing the job hunt. I'd had it very well planned, but it was an expensive transition to tech. And then I got laid off. I made it 9 months before I got hit in a tech layoff. And I don't have to worry about it because the very first thing I did with my extra fat paycheck was not buy a boat, but put it all in the bank. So I'm living off my savings again, but it's not so stressful. So that's my advice to you is those columns of things you're going to spend it on. You can pick a couple from each column, but definitely pick a few to put your money in before you start buying the fancy toys. And with that, I'm going to let you go. I hope you enjoy the rest of the week. Not going to see you tomorrow. That sync session got canceled, but definitely on Monday, we will do the Watch Your Mentors Interview Each Other, which is my favorite session because it's really great to see someone else go through something that if you go through it, you get stressed out, you forget everything. So to watch somebody else go through it is super informative. You get a lot more information and can use it. So have a great afternoon, evening, wherever you are, early morning. And I'll see you next time.
Yep. And I'm in Slack, so any follow-up questions, feel free to shoot that on over there.
Oh,
Thanks,
Beth
everyone.
just asked a quick question. Tomorrow's session got canceled. So there's already a recording from the last quarter. So you can get a session. It's just not live. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.